Is it becoming paralysis for analysis from some of these Major League Baseball players? That's some of what I talk about in this edition of the Baseball Beat. I also dig into my archives and replay an interview I did with Pat Crawford, who at the time of the interview in 1983 was the last surviving member of the Gas House Gang, the 1934 St. Louis Cardinals. It's all coming up in my latest podcast. Give a listen, and if you would like to subscribe, just hit the subscribe button down below here on YouTube, or if you would like to subscribe to the podcast, the audio form, I've got a link to the website. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching The Baseball Beat.
Welcome to The Baseball Beat with your host, Dan Lovallo.
Well, here we are into August. I'm putting this podcast together on Saturday, August the 8th. The baseball season, the Major League Baseball season, attempting to move forth. Another series has been postponed, the Cubs and the Cardinals, because of COVID-19, so who knows where it's all going to end up. But before we get to an interview I did with a member of the Gas House Gang way back in the early 1980s, that's when I did the interview, I want to just get into some of what I'm reading in regards to the 2020 Major League Baseball season. And look, I understand what these players, well, I shouldn't say I understand what these players are going through. Nobody knows what they're going through unless they actually experience it, where they now essentially have to be sequestered. And Major League Baseball has issued this latest edict where players in the dugout and other coaches, the manager, all have to wear masks in the dugout, and all the other protocol, some new protocol as well, which must be followed. So I understand, in a sense, where they're coming from. That might be the better description. I don't know what they're going through, because no one knows what they're going through unless they're actually experiencing it. But that said, man, I read the other day, and Dan Shaughnessy of the Boston Globe did a great column on it. J.D. Martinez now upset because he can't watch video of his at-bats in between his trips to the plate. Are you serious? And part of the reason, I guess, is because of COVID, and another because of the cheating scandal. These players were able to actually go into the back room in between at-bats and watch video. And I'm sorry, but that is analysis by paralysis. I understand the metrics that are in place today, all of this analysis with the computers and the statistics and everything. But do you think members of the Gas House Gang had to worry about video? You have to have some confidence in your ability here. My goodness, if you strike out, you've got to go back and watch video. I understand the video analysis in between games. I get that, even if you want to get to the ballpark early, although some of these players are upset because they can't get to the ballpark more than 5 hours before a game. More than 5 hours before a game? I understand these players have become entities. These individual players have become brand names because of the money they make and the endorsements and the agents and all of that. And the game is far different from the Gas House Gang, which was a name for the 1930s hard-nosed St. Louis Cardinals teams of Dizzy Dean and all of those great players. I understand that. But for goodness sakes, when it gets to the point where you don't feel as if you're hitting well because you don't have the ability to go into the clubhouse in between at-bats and watch video, come on. That's analysis by paralysis. Or as Dan Shaughnessy wrote in the Boston Globe, that's an excuse. That's an excuse. So that's the latest as far as what some of the players are complaining about. J.D. Martinez in particular. I can't go into the clubhouse in between at-bats and take a look at my... And by the way, the big controversy was he was called on to pinch hit in last Sunday night's game between the Yankees and the Red Sox in the ninth inning, and just didn't feel comfortable doing it. And so he didn't bat. He didn't pinch hit. Come on. It just boggles my mind. Didn't feel comfortable enough to go up and pinch hit in a one-run ball game. Man, I'll tell you, it's crazy. It really is. Now, how about the Miami Marlins? That's a story. As I put this together, they are 7-1. You talk about having to battle some adversity because they missed a week of the season because of COVID. Didn't stop them. You don't see the understaffed Marlins making excuses, do you? They're just getting out there and playing. And, oh, by the way, the Yankees played a 7-inning doubleheader against the Philadelphia Phillies the other night. 2 7-inning games. They loved it so much. Now there's conversation among the Yankees. They wouldn't mind seeing doubleheaders in the future played. And what's the big surprise? Many of these players experienced this in their minor league days. 7-inning doubleheaders, 2 7-inning games. They experienced it in their minor league days. And now all of a sudden they're expressing surprise. Oh, this is great. It shouldn't come as a shock. Most of them, if they played in the minor leagues, then you were used to playing doubleheaders, 7-inning games, 2 7-inning games. And as I said, and it's going to be part of my Dan plan, which will be released this month, as far as what Major League Baseball should do, 7-inning doubleheaders are part of the plan beyond 2020. Pat Crawford, some of you might be asking, who in the world is Pat Crawford? Pat Crawford lived until the age of 92. He died on January 25th, 1994. He was the last surviving member of the Gas House Gang, the 1934 St. Louis Cardinals team, which won the World Series over the Detroit Tigers in 7 games. I happened to interview Pat Crawford when he was living in Kinston, North Carolina, and I was broadcasting Carolina League games in that 1983 and 1984 season. I caught up to him in 1983. At the time, the Kinston Blue Jays, the team for which I worked and broadcast the games, was the single-A affiliate, the Carolina League affiliate of the Toronto Blue Jays. And through the club's owner, Ray Coleman, I caught up with Crawford in his home, and he graciously gave me an interview reminiscing about his baseball playing days, including the Cardinals, for whom he played in 1933 and 1934. And by the way, he got into 2 games in that 1934 World Series. And might I add, he wasn't talking about going back to the clubhouse in between innings to look at video. The World Series, incidentally, became renowned because it was played closely until the final game. That's when the Cardinals blew out the Tigers 11-0 in Detroit. And the game made headlines because of a hard slide into third base in the top of the 6th by the Cardinals' Joe Medwick. It led to a brief fight between Medwick and Marv Owen, who was the third baseman for the Detroit Tigers. However, when Medwick went out to play left field in the last of the 6th inning, the Tigers fans who were upset started pelting him with fruit, vegetables, bottles, cushions. And it led to the intervention by Commissioner Kennesaw Mountain Landis, who obviously was at the game. He ordered the Cardinals to remove Medwick from the game, and it became the only time in the history of the major leagues that a commissioner ejected a player from a game. How about that? So I dug into the archives so that we could hear my interview, which is now some, 38 years old, the interview I did back in 1983. So that'd be 37 years. Now 37 years old, the interview I did with Pat Crawford back in 1983, talking about his baseball playing days, including his time with the Gas House Gang. My guest is Captain Pat Crawford. Pat, of course, played Major League Baseball for the Cincinnati Reds, the New York Giants, and the St. Louis Cardinals. He was a member of the Gas House Gang, which went on to win the World's Championship in 1934. Captain Pat, what do you remember about that Gas House team?
Well, the first thing, in the first place, I think it was a real Gas House group. A great many people have asked me if it was a rough and tumble type, and I responded in the affirmative, that I thought they were rough and tough. no one could go into second base any harder than Pepper Martin. And he might have injured one or two, but he certainly didn't do it on purpose. He felt like the bag belonged to him and he was going to have it. I saw him hit a shortstop one time, sliding. His cap went up in the air, his glove flew off, and one shoe came off.
How about telling us about Dizzy Dean?
Dizzy was good copy. I recall one morning we were waiting for the subway over to Brooklyn to play the Dodgers. And a sports writer came in and sat on the sofa and began asking Dizzy questions. And Dizzy would give him all types of answers. I think that was the first time that I had ever heard him give the name of a small town in Arkansas as his birthplace. And we all knew that he had given Oklahoma and Mississippi and maybe one or two others. And we asked him why he wanted to do that. He said, oh, well, I just wanted to give him a scoop.
How about Joe Medwick? How was he?
Medwick was not a rowdy type. He was what I call a great hitter. He could hit balls outside, inside, low, high. In fact, he probably got as many hits off of bad pitches as he did off of strikes. He was a fine young man, I thought. Some of the older boys didn't care for him to come in and become a star so quickly. The older ball players always felt that a rookie coming in should be a rookie for a while.
How about Leo DeRocher, who went on to manage in the major leagues?
DeRocher, as a player, I'd say was mediocre. But he had a manager's mind. In the 1934 season where we won the World Championship, DeRocher was actually the brains of the ball club.
How about you? What do you personally remember? Any experiences you could remember back about 1934?
34. Of course, I was a pinch hitter and a utility man. Jack of all trades, you might say. I enjoyed it. I would have enjoyed playing more. But if someone else is occupying a position, your position, why, and he's better, why, you just have to figure that's one of the breaks of the game.
Now, I know the Giants were after you and you finally signed on with that organization. Why did you become a professional baseball player?
Well, in the first place, the money. In the second place, I had in mind coaching. And if I was a former big league baseball player, I'd have more prestige as a college coach.
Captain, you were involved with so many people who became greats in the game, legends, and I'd like to ask you about them. You played under Casey Stengel. How was he?
Casey? Well, Casey was one of my favorites. In fact, I have a large picture of Casey in my room. Casey was affable. He didn't know a stranger. And if a man would come up and begin talking about the weather, he'd wind up talking baseball. Regardless of what you brought up, he would always bring in baseball. He was telling you about how good Ross Young was, or how good Bill Terry was. The greatest play I saw was by one of his players, Bobby Veach. Casey taught him taught that if a ball could be reached, you should get it. Well, Bobby was playing left field, and he was a right-handed thrower, and the ball was hit down the line, a line drive, and Bobby dashed over at full speed and caught the line drive just off the ground with his naked hand, his right hand. That was the greatest catch I've ever seen, but it typified the type of enthusiasm and drive that Casey taught his players.
How about John McGraw? How was he to play for?
I played for John McGraw in his latter days. He was a fighter. He'd get on the umpires. He had one in particular that he didn't like. His name was Major Kurth. Obviously a German, big fella. And if he made a mistake out there on the field, McGraw would get on him. He called him Krauthead. And when Major Kirk heard Krauthead, he'd walk over and tell McGraw to shut up, or he's going to put him out of the ball game. And I've seen him time and time again call Major Kirk Krauthead. It just upset him, and to get him to come over and get the fans on him.
Is it true that McGraw played no favorites?
I never saw him play favorites. Art, Lindstrom, Terry, all of those stars were equal in his side, equal to a rookie. He wouldn't show a rookie any favoritism because he was a rookie, or he wouldn't show a star any favoritism because he was a star.
Now, one of the fiery baseball executives in the game of baseball was, of course, Larry McPhail. How about telling us how Larry used his shrewdness to get you to play for him at Columbus?
Larry McPhail was a very fine football official. He officiated games down south. His profession was a lawyer. Larry loved baseball, and he persuaded Branch Rickey of the Cardinals to buy the Columbus, Ohio team of the American Association from Cincinnati. And he needed a first baseman. So I was taking physical education at Springfield College, Springfield, Massachusetts. And he felt like he might be able to persuade me to go to Columbus and play for him. So he called me one day when I was on class in Springfield and asked me to come over and talk with him about it. And I told him I wasn't interested in professional baseball, that I was interested in physical education. Well, the next day he called again, and he persuaded me to get on the train and go over to Columbus and talk with him about it in person. Well, when I arrived at the station, he had 2 or 3 professors from the Ohio State Physical Education faculty. And we went to a hotel, and they asked what academic credentials I had. I had A.B. from Davidson, and then I had all of the science I was having to take at Springfield. And they said, well, they're okay. Said, we'd like to have you come here and go into fall quarter, 3 fall quarters, play baseball for Columbus. So I didn't give any definite answer. I went back to Springfield and thought it might be a good deal that I might play well enough at Columbus to go back to the majors. And also I would receive a master's from a large Midwestern university. So that's how I knew Larry McPhail. Larry, as you know, went to Cincinnati. He was an innovator of the first water. He was first to have his players fly, night baseball. You could name a number of them.
Pat, do you still follow Major League Baseball today?
I follow the playoffs and the World Series, and I watch some of the teams on TV.
How has the game changed?
Well, I think the ball players of the day are faster, they're stronger. But as all-around baseball players, I would hesitate to say that they are better baseball players than the baseball players of old, all-around baseball, because they have some weaknesses. And of course, in my day, they had weaknesses also. But it is they make more thrilling plays today than they did in my day. The outfielders get the balls that players in my day would not have gotten to, and they make fielding plays in the infield that players in my day wouldn't have played. One reason, I think, is the gloves. They have bigger gloves, and then too they're faster.
How about the enthusiasm? Do you think the enthusiasm is there today as opposed to yesterday?
I was going to say that I think that's the biggest difference between the ball players of today and the ball players of yesterday.
How about the free agent system as it's set up today? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think it is just about ruined baseball.
Why?
Well, in my day, the baseball player stayed with a club, and as long as he was fit and able to play baseball, the fans got to know him. There was a personal relationship. The fans had favorites, and I can't imagine a player like Bill Terry for the Giants just leaving New York as long as he was playing well, or Travis Jackson, the shortstop, or Freddie Lindstrom, the third baseman, and to pick up and change clubs year after year, I think detracts from the game of baseball.
Who's the best manager in the game today?
Today? Well, I don't follow baseball that closely. You see some managers today that look like to me they haven't read the book. I've always felt that to get ahead, if you'll notice Bill Slack of Winston-Salem team here, I've watched Bill manage for years, and it seems to me that his first objective is to get ahead, even one run. For example, in the first inning, for example, first man up, Bill, if he's fast, he might put on the steal, or a hit and run, or he might wait for the second man to see what he's going to do. But you take last night, a team had men on first or second, nobody out. I think Bill Clack would have moved more, or tried to move more, and get that one run, just one run, and it puts some pressure on the other team. Of course, they'll say, well, that's old-timey stuff, and it wouldn't work today. The infielders will charge in and force that man at second or third, and you've lost an out. Why give it up? Why not let the man swing away? So oftentimes they swing away, but there's a pop-up or a double play.
Could John McGraw manage today with these guys?
I doubt that. I doubt if these modern-day players would play for McGraw, because he was iron-fisted and a disciplinarian of the first water. You got in your hotel room at a certain hour, and you got up, made breakfast at a certain hour.
When people talk about Pat Crawford, what would you like them to say about you?
Well, he was a good guy. I think that's about tops.
Pat Crawford, you are a good guy, and I want to thank you very much for talking with me. Thanks a lot.
You're quite welcome. I've enjoyed it.
Couple of other notes about Pat. He played 318 games in the major leagues with the New York Giants, Cincinnati Reds, and St. Louis Cardinals. Had a lifetime .280 batting average without having to look at video. Played first base, second base, third base. Played collegiate baseball with Springfield College in Springfield, Massachusetts, and also played collegiately for Ohio State and Davidson College. Hope you enjoyed the interview. Again, my interview with Pat Crawford, who passed away in 1994, the last member of the St. Louis Cardinals' famous, or some might say infamous, Gas House Gang. That is going to do it for the Baseball Beat. As always, thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. We are in all of the major podcast directories. Visit my website, thebaseballbeat.com or danlavallo.com. And if you would like to email me, my email address is dan@danlavallo.com.